Hello friends, I'm Narendra Verma. As you know very well, we are dealing with the Chapter 3 in Business Studies for Class 12, and that is Business Environment, right? In today's session, we are going to cover New Industrial Policy 1991, which is also known as New Economic Policy. Okay, we'll discuss the meaning of industrial policy, then we'll discuss the timeline of industrial policy resolution in India, then we'll discuss crisis of 1991, and then journey of new industrial policy, features of new industrial policy, and objectives of new industrial policy, right? Okay, thereafter we'll discuss main components of new industrial policy 1991, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. In today's session, we are going to cover it all, right? So without wasting much time, let's start that. Before going to new industrial policy, we need to understand the economic system of India, right? We all know that India was a slave of British government, okay? And India became free on 15th August 1947, right? After 15th August 1947, the responsibility of the entire nation was there in the hand of Indian government, right? Okay, now they were to do the planning so that they can run the nation. And for running the nation, industrial development is very much important, right? So Indian government thought about it as well. Okay, and one more thing, to run the government, it is very much necessary that which economic system the nation is going to adopt. Okay, and thereafter the government is supposed to plan its industrial development and the other factors of the economy, right? So very first, the question was there to the Indian government to decide which system of economy should be followed in our country. Okay, there are three types of economic systems in general: capitalist economy, mixed economy, and socialist economy, right? Okay, in brief I am discussing it because for our topic it's important to understand it. Okay, capitalist economy, when government gives the entire responsibility of nation building to private sector. All right, if any country has adopted this system, so these countries are known as capitalist countries, or they exercise capitalist economy. So there are few countries, okay, in which capitalist economies is there. Say for example America. Okay, so there are few advantages and disadvantages of all the three systems. Okay, so in this what happens, the private sector becomes stronger than the public sector, and they can give any time a threat to government, right? And in these countries there are very much high chances of recession, right? Okay, so that is what the flaw in the capitalist economy. Okay, now let's talk about socialist economy. In socialist economy, what happens, the government undertakes the entire responsibility of industrial development in its hand, right? They do not give anything in the hand of private sector. They will set up the infrastructure, they will run the whole industrial system in the country. Okay, so here the complete nation building is there in the hand of public sector. Okay, so like capitalist economy, this socialist economy is also having some advantages and disadvantages. And what is the disadvantage? That the entire load of the industrial development is there on the public sector, right? Okay, if public sector is losing somewhere, then God may help it. Okay, now, so when India became free in 1947, then the question was there before all the Indian leaders, the Indian government, that they should adopt which economic system. Okay, and for that the population of the country and the other factors of the countries are very much responsible, that which economic system should be supported. Already if the government is there in the strong position, then they can adopt this socialist economy, right? Okay, and if the private sector is very much strong in the country, then they can adopt the capitalist economy. But here in our country, the situation was there in 50-50 man. Okay, private industries were there, but very few private industries were there. Okay, and there were very few public sector units also. Okay, so the Indian government decided to adopt this mixed economy. Fine, it has advantages of capitalist economy as well as the advantages of socialist economy. Okay, so that was the best decision at that point of time, and this economic system suits our country. Okay, here what happens? Public plus private. The role will be there for the nation building. The role of both sectors, public and private, is important. Okay, but the controlling power, the remote control, lies in the hand of government. Okay, so that is what the feature of mixed economy. Fine. Okay, because if we leave everything to private sector, then we know very well that so many people are under poverty line, and definitely they are going to suffer a lot. Okay, you know very well that government gives subsidy at so many items so that the below poverty level people can also afford it. Okay, that is because the public sector units are there. Okay, fine. So now let's move further. Okay, after 1947, when India became free, then there was a question before Indian government that to choose which economic system. So they chose mixed economy system. Okay, so this decision of mixed economy was not taken with a single go. The officials of the Indian government did the observation, they did planning. Okay, they just observe the per capita income of the country. Okay, and they observe the level of income of every individual. They observed how many industries are working and what are the resources available, what are the plus point of our geographical situations and what are the weaknesses of our geographical system. And after that they did planning. Okay, and then they started putting all that planning, okay, with the foresightedness in one resolution, and that was known as industrial policy resolution. Okay, so now we need to talk about what does industrial policy mean. Thereafter we'll talk about the timeline of the industrial policy, how many industrial policies were announced in India. Okay, so very first let's discuss the meaning of industrial policy. Okay, industrial policy is a policy document prepared by the government which states that how the industrial environment of the country is going to take the shape, right? What will be the rules, regulations, procedures and system to develop and control the industries in the country. Okay, means if anybody is going to set up an industry, then what will be the procedure for that? Okay, the person needs permission or not. If permission is needed, that what is the procedure, what are the steps, okay, and which kind of industries can be opened. And it also includes that what will be the role of public sector, private sector, joint sector, cooperative enterprises, etc. Because as I explained you that in the first policy it was decided that India is going to adopt mixed economy, and mixed economy, the role of private and public sector both is important. Okay, so what will be the role of public sector, what will be the role of private sector, and some projects are to be run in joint manner as well. So what will be the role of the joint sector, and the cooperative enterprises are also there in our country. So what will be the role of those? Okay, so everything has to be decided in this policy. In policy everything is written, a kind of framework is prepared which is to be followed by all industries working in the entire country, whether it is public, private, cooperative. Understood? Okay, So the role of industrial policy becomes very much important in country like India. Why? Because we adopted mixed economy, and mixed economy is a planned economy. You will have to make planning for that. Then concept of 5-year planning also came just because of that, because we adopted the planned economy. But we are not getting into the detail of 5-year planning right now. Okay. And this industrial policy is also known as industrial policy resolution. Okay, because the government resolves to do all this. They just make their planning, they just note down all the planning points or the rules regulation which need to be followed in a document which is known as policy. Okay, and this has to be followed because government takes the resolution, okay, for a time period that it has to be followed till then, and some objectives are also set in all industrial policies, okay, that in certain period government resolves to attain those objectives. Okay, so that is why these are also known as industrial policy resolution. Okay. So the first industrial policy resolution in India was announced on 6th April 1948. It had various objectives. We are not getting into the detail that what were the objectives behind that. Okay, so the government kept on working. Okay, and all the industries had to follow all the resolutions given there in that policy. Okay, it was going on fine. But what happened after passing a few years? Then the government realized then they need to do more planning, they need to make some changes and amendments in that policy, and thereafter again they planned, and then they announced another industrial policy resolution, which was second industrial policy resolution in 1956. Okay, and in this policy resolution they again had certain kind of objectives which they felt very much necessary to be achieved. Okay, like I told you that that is not a part of syllabus, so I'm not getting into the detail. Okay, what was there in that? So thereafter, as it was announced in 1956, okay, then it kept on going on. Okay, industries were functioning, public sector was performing its role, private sector was performing its role. Very minimum role was given to private sector, and the entire role was there of the public sector. Okay, so everything was going on, and later on when so many other years passed on, then the government once again felt that they needed to make some more changes in their industrial policy, because the industrial development was not happening up to the mark which the country needed, right? So that is why they had to keep on changing in their policy. Okay, so thereafter they made change, and then they announced the third policy in 1973. Okay, they made some amendments in 1956, and after these amendments another policy was announced in 1973. Thereafter, once again, after a few years, they announced the another industrial policy in 1977. Okay, now you see that very first their policy was announced in 1948. Okay, then for these many years the system kept on going on. Okay, then they announced the policy in 73. Okay, and now after 73 you see that the policies were announced in very short period, in very small period, because the economy was getting derailed. Okay, here they noticed the symptoms, right? That's why they understood that they had to make changes, and they kept on making the amendments, okay, year by year, and then they announced the fifth industrial policy resolution in 1980. Okay, now you see that after 73 two more policies were announced in 7 years, right? So you can see the situation was going out of control. Now what happened after 1980? The economic condition of India started getting worsened day by day. Okay, it was going down and down. However, the government was trying its level best to control it, but they could not control it. Thereafter, they announced the new industrial policy in 1991. So we'll talk about this new industrial policy 1991 later on. Very first, I just explain you in brief that what was the problem in all these 5 policies. Okay, like I told you that India adopted the mixed economy system. So mixed economy is a planned economy. Okay, and what the government was required to do, government was required to take the private sector also together with public sector. But what was happening in actual? In actual, government was taking the entire responsibility in its hand and was giving the minimum responsibility and minimum role to private sector. Okay, all the heavy industries were set up by the government. Okay, so whatever the reserve government had, government invested the entire capital in that, right? Okay, and all these public sector units, or we call them public sector undertaking or public sector enterprises, they just work on public welfare, right? Means even in the case of loss, they do not stop their operation, they do not reduce their cost, they kept on working, right? Okay, so just because of the welfare system, what was happening, their incoming reduced and outgoing remained in the similar situation or kept on increasing, you can say, because the population was increasing, right? Okay, so they could not increase the cost. Fine. So when an industry is getting less revenue, okay, and spending more, fine, then what will be the situation? A day will come, the industry will become sick. A day will come, it will start facing the losses, all the reserves of the government will become empty, and that happened. Okay, why it happened? Because government took the entire responsibility in its hand. Okay, there was the dominance of public sector, right? Minimum role was given to private sector. Very few industries were there in the private sector. As many industrialists who were capable to set up heavy industries in India, they did not get the permission. There was the license Raj. There was licensing system in India. Okay, and most heavy industries were reserved only for public sector. Private sector was not allowed to do business. And if private sector is allowed for some business, then there were certain restrictions. The act like MRTP Act and FERA. Okay, these many acts were also there, under which lot of restrictions were there on the operation of the private sector business. Okay, operation like if they are producing one material, they can produce only single one material. They cannot start producing the another material. That was one restriction. For example, I'm discussing. Okay, one more restriction was there. Government had set the limit for the growth. Okay, say for example, any industry is earning 10% profit, then after that it cannot. There was a limit for growth of the industry as well. Okay, and why government was doing it? Government was doing it because government had a fear. Government had a fear of capitalist economy. Like, because when they start giving maximum role to private sector, what happens? Then there is the monopoly of private sector, and private sector may exploit the people of India, and most of the people are under poverty line, and definitely they are not going to survive, and it will be completely unfair with those people. So government had that fear, and just because of that, it had closed all the doors for the development of the private industries. Okay, if I say that during this period government literally throttled the private industries, then it will not be the hyperbole, right? It was a kind of situation. Fine, because there was the dominance of the public sector over the private sector, and the public sector units were running in loss. Now, as much reserve was there with the government, that became empty. Now, the situation came on taking loan from the international institutions or other countries. Okay, so that was happening. That happened till 1991, before the new industrial policy was announced. Okay, what was the exact situations? Okay, what were the data of those time? I would like to discuss with you all.